That was a great last session, only to be even better for this next one. I'd like to introduce and have you give a warm welcome to Colonel Aaron Angell, United States Marine Corps, retired. Give him one for that. All right. Recently, the director of the Logistics Combat Element Division at Marine Corps Combat Development and Integration, a Naval Academy graduate and career logistics officer. Colonel Angell has commanded at every level with deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, and leadership roles across aviation and ground logistics and everywhere else you can imagine. He now leads modernization efforts on integrating unmanned resupply, additive manufacturing, micro repair, into the future force, you name it. He's done it. We have a great opportunity today on a discussion for modernizing the Marine Corps sustainment, possibly the greatest moderator that we could have on this subject, and somebody that I look up to and a mentor of mine. So thank you very much. And one more time, give it up for Colonel Angell. Get my stuff out of your way.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Yeah, the reality is I don't do much of it. I just talk it. And then the folks to my right and to your left are the ones who really do it. And really, while this is labeled logistics modernization, I will tell you the one word that I actually want you to be thinking about a little bit is culture. So, and it's the culture of change. So, because in many cases we have actually fielded or begun fielding several different types of logistics modernization, whether that's advanced manufacturing or additive manufacturing, recognizing those are two different things, whether it's an ultralight tactical vehicle that fits inside of an MB-22, whether that's new capabilities for damage control, resuscitation, and surgical capabilities to extend the life of casualties on the ground, and long range or long endurance and route care type capabilities, and including also even the unmanned logistics systems in the air, which we've begun fielding the tactical resupply unmanned aerial system TruAS, and then working for medium systems and even large systems. So the reality is we don't have enough of those that are out there. And part of that is it's the culture. So and I say that from the viewpoint of once you begin fielding something, it's really the question of, do you have it in the hands of the right leader? Do you have it in the hands of the right command who are in the right place to really grow this and explode this? And that's really why we pulled the folks in to your left, that we really just wanted to kind of get some of their perspectives on some of the new capabilities that are out there that we totally need to grow. So a few other quick things. So what I will say following General Donovan, so while there were a few soft daggers to the logistics heart, I will also say that for what it's worth, which I know all of us are thinking this then too, so he very much has the soft SOCOM mentality right now, and which is a little bit different than the broader Marine Corps mentality. But that is one of the challenges. Heck, every discussion and every topic that he brought up right now, those are literally the discussions at the executive offsites that we have, the EOSs, the 3- and 4-star discussions of, okay, so how do we fight as a Marine Corps? And we're working on some capstone concepts for that. So the other thing I do want to do just before jumping to the team here, so certainly the topic here is littoral or literal. So we are literally talking about the literals. So a little bit of a joke. But the point to this is what we're talking about right here isn't as much specifically in the littoral operating area. It's really just the challenge of recognizing that the littorals require us to be distributed, require us to be dispersed, require us to be further away from the broader logistics footprint, but you still need to have logistics on the ground. So a question that I would have asked General Donovan is, while you did extremely importantly draw out the fact that you needed that medical expert in your team, did you have a logistics expert that was with you there? And the reason why I asked that is that's the stuff that we're already starting to put into the heads and drive into the culture of our Marine logisticians. It's not just your personal military occupational specialty, it's what's happening to your left and right, to include what's happening in the joint force and how can you tap into that. So, so what I am going to do, so at the table right now, I'm interestingly only going to say one thing about each person, and it's actually the unit they're from, and it's important to know that. And there's two reasons why I'm doing that. So I'll let them expound a little bit more as they talk. So, but who you see up here. So Lieutenant Colonel Brian Geisen from Combat Logistics Regiment 2. And specifically the point here is 2nd MLG and 2MEF. We have Captain Rachel Carmichael, Maintenance, 2nd Maintenance Battalion, 2nd MLG, 2MEF. So Chief Officer 3, Matt Pine, 2nd Maintenance Battalion, 2MEF, 2nd MLG. And then Chief Warrant Officer 2, Zach Gates, 2nd Maintenance Battalion, 2nd MLG, 2MEF. There's a reason why I'm driving that, and the particular reason right here, which I didn't forget about you, Tyler, I'm still hitting you. But the point right there is the 2nd MLG, not only are they closest to us physically on the ground right here, but the reality is what's been done with some of the previous commanding generals, General Poole to General McWilliams, General Hennigan, really driving innovation. We see that across the Marine Corps, but there's some particular folks here. It wasn't just because they were the closest. It's because these particular chief officers, captains, and lieutenant colonels are really representing a lot of change. And then the other one that I will make mention of is Captain Tyler Womack. So Tyler's coming down from the Capability Development Directorate, specifically as the Capability Integration Officer, focused on the unmanned logistics systems in the air. So, and that's focused on the small, which is the TruAS, which I mentioned, as well as the medium, which is called Marvel. We really like our acronyms. The Medium Aerial Resupply Vehicle Expeditionary Logistics, which it sounds cool to say Marvel. And then there's also a larger element of that being the Aerial Logistics Connector, ALC. So I already even took a lot of time right there. The intent now, I'm really going to ask each one of them, and I'm going to go in a particular order, just to provide some thoughts on the perspectives. And while each one of them could actually expound on a whole lot more, there's some real specialties that we really kind of want to draw out. So we'll go around one round each for each person, and then we're going to open the floor, because I know there's some of you like, wait a minute, but what about this? And this is literally the dream team of who we could talk about with innovation. The last thing I have to say before asking the question is, I do really want you to be thinking, okay, how do we learn from what they are experiencing about affecting culture? Because it's not just getting the thing, it's changing the mindset to accept the thing and totally expand that across the entire Marine Corps. Okay, Rachel, we'll start with you. So can you provide some examples of advanced manufacturing successes? And then additionally, you've had some really interesting experiences with telemaintenance affecting the readiness of, it's from the maintenance community, but affecting the readiness of the MAGTF. So Rachel, over to you.
Yes, sir. So currently the Maintenance Operations Section, OIC, at 2nd Maintenance Battalion. And what we've seen is that, like we've heard in some of the panels earlier, is that innovation has been occurring, as far as like 3D printing and advanced manufacturing. And we've been able to kind of capitalize on that right now. So with units kind of seeing like when they have a problem, they can come to us to kind of fix that as a solution. What we've done is we're like, well, this is great, innovation is great, but we also want to have them focus more in on how can we affect them and help them with their material readiness. So what we're doing right now is, if you kind of think about it, the MEF probably has about 4,000 to 5,000 parts that they have on order at any given time. And so what we're doing with that is that we're kind of looking through those items, and then from there we kind of draw out like, from those items, there's probably about 1,400, 1,500 individual items, individual NINs that the units may need. And then of course from there we got to kind of figure out, well, not everything is, has a supply chain issue, so we have to kind of drill down from there. So what we're doing right now is pretty much we have a team of SMEs. I say they're most likely, they're my staff that works in the MOS with me. So we do have a day job, but this is kind of like our extra job that we're taking on. Just to kind of be that driving force of trying to get parts out to the MEF. So what we do is we look and we say like, okay, well, which one of these has like the longest ESDs? Which one of these have a high combat exceptionality code? And what is going to be able to effectively maybe produce a part that could get a part off being equipment off of being deadline and affect readiness. Now we're in the FSC stages of this right now, but we have had a couple of successes even in the short amount of time that we have started doing this. One of those successes is a gasket that we pushed over to LtCol to actually manufacture for us. It's actually for a JLTV, and we're all aware of some of the challenges that we're having with the JLTV and supply system right now. In addition, another item that we've seen is actually a wedge that we were actually able to produce at Maintenance Battalion. And then we found out that not only did we produce that item, but guess what? The Combat Engineering Battalion actually needs like about 50 of these items. It's a wedge that essentially they need in order to be able to put their up armor back on their JLTVs. So as we're kind of going through this process, yes, it's kind of a tedious process, but we're seeing that we're hoping that industry might be able to help us out with some products that might make the process a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more easier for us. I'll just leave it right there for that for right now. But with the second part of that question, the telecommunication aspects of what we've been able to do is we've been able to partner with LtCol MDMC, utilizing the HoloLens device, with assisting us in doing some maintenance. So the first thing that we did was there was 3 Alpha TAM shelters, so communication shelters that were down up at Cherry Point. We were able to pretty much send a Marine that had been trained on how to utilize that device. And essentially he was able to quickly kind of get that Marine, that comm Marine spun up on what he needed to do. We were able to link in with LtCom, and they were able to actually walk that Marine through with performing the maintenance that was necessary to get those 3 shelters back up and running. Now, so that was great. It was kind of more of a local kind of crack out for us to see how the equipment will work out. So we wanted to test it out even further. What if we decided to put it like on an MPF? So we had an opportunity during an MPF offload, coupling with some maintenance that we were going to be doing on the ship as well, kind of as a test bed on the USS Palau. And we were able to utilize that device, and they were able to call back to us, and we were able to observe them with performing a maintenance on a tram of removing and replacing a tire. So we're like, okay, well, let's see if we can push this a little bit further. What if we were to send it out to Norway during one of our Norway MSTs that we had? And it just so happened that a real life situation was actually came up at that time where in that area, there's a up-armored cab that was being installed into the trams, and they were running into problems with it being able to function properly after the installations. But the Norwegians were able to come up with a workaround. But of course, we weren't going to be authorized to utilize that workaround until it could be verified by the PM shop. So utilizing these devices, we had a chief command officer that was able to be out there. They could see from his first person point of view of what he was actually looking at, what he was actually doing, what procedures the Norwegians had put in place to actually fix the workaround. And we were able to get the MEF, MLG, the PM shop, and also second maintenance on the line to kind of go through and actually kind of validate that procedure. And we were able to come up with a modification that would actually work, that could be approved right there on the spot. So those are just a couple of examples of how we've been able to use some emerging technology.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you think the telemaintenance as well as even telemedicine then too, which there are some elements that are practicing that then too, to include even within second MLG, and being able to take that as something you can do at home station and in any deployed environment, recognizing that the further forward you are, there might be some challenges with even getting some of that communications, but those are all opportunities that exist then too. So yeah, so thanks so much for that. Now, swinging it back to advanced manufacturing. So Matt, I'm going to come to you next. So Chief Officer Pine, basically, I would say he's basically really the lead for advanced manufacturing within the FMF across the entire Marine Corps. So he spent time doing advanced manufacturing within 3MEF, as well as within 1MEF, and then it is now within 2MEF, and really not just as the one-man show trying to do it himself, it's the how do you spread that around. So Matt, can you talk to us a little bit? I know yesterday we had the panel on this then too, but now as a panelist, can you actually talk about the experiences of how are you spreading that culture, and then how are you seeing that grow a little bit more too? So over to you, thank you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Finally, my time to shine. Yeah. Essentially, if we look back, let's say 10 years max, Marine Corps came out super hot and heavy on AM. We fielded leading edge equipment. We told Marines go find problems and fix them. Like that's what we did. The problem we ran into is that never got integrated into how we do business. So as much as the Marine Corps does AM, we don't think and utilize AM as if it's a supplemental source of supply. We don't include it in our planning. We don't include it in our logistics concepts. It's not a thing that we have integrated into how we function. So the main push, you stole some of my thunder, we should have coordinated. The main push right now is getting it integrated into how we do business and how we impact readiness with it. That's really what we're looking at 2MEF. At the Innovation Campus, we're working on developing the workforce, the knowledge, the understanding across the MEF. So we train everybody. We have a ton of MARSOC guys coming over. We have reservists that we're starting to work with to try and get them trained up. You don't have to understand all the intricacies of the equipment, but you need to understand how it works so you can employ it when you're out there and you can leverage it properly and weaponize it properly. So that's what we're really working on developing. 1MEF was good. We did a really good grassroots push to develop it from the bottom up. We're out sitting in regimental MRBs with 5th Marines, 1st Marines, pick your unit, and handing out flyers and saying, hey, I can fix your problems. And then we came to 2MEF, and from the top down, everyone is pushing it. And it's helping grow it from the top down and the bottom up, and it's starting to widen out now to the point that it's now being viewed as a supplemental source of supply, and it's being implemented in how we think. And that's really the way forward, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, thanks so much. Now, imagine that advanced manufacturing capability as far forward as we can push it. Imagine that being on some ships then too. So Navy ships, which they have this capability, the fleet readiness centers. So from the viewpoint of the aviation community and the MALs already have this capability then too. So now it's great. I have a part. I have a place that can make that part. And now how can I get it to them quickly? And I'm using that as a transition to say, so now this is the stuff where we're talking about what transportation capabilities are we really working to emerge, grabbing that technology and leaning on cargo UAS. Now, I will say, and I'm going to steal a tiny bit of this, but the cargo UAS, we intentionally started with a small one just to get folks to understand what is in the realm of possibility. If you started big and then tried to get folks to understand that, it would have been seen as just another aircraft. But we intentionally built the smallest one of the family just to get it into the hands of the FMF, which Brian will hit you then too. So, but Tyler, can you talk about what you're starting to see now with True as we're moving? We don't need to get in the programmatics necessarily of Marvel and ALC, but what are you seeing and the excitement of what could come with cargo UAS?
Thank you, sir. Yes. For True as, we're seeing a resurgence. When I first got on deck last fall, True as was kind of the TRV 150 was a lesser loved piece of equipment among the fleet. It's logistically cumbersome to deploy and utilize, and we acknowledge that. But ever since, I would say, since the UAS symposium that was conducted at Modern Day Marine, we've seen a resurgence across the force, and a desire to employ the TRV 150, and then seeing through some of the friction and complexities and employing the system for the capability it does provide. And so I continue to receive, we're nearly complete on our fieldable systems. So fielding the units that will ultimately end up having them on their TE. But I, weekly receive emails from different Victor units, other support, TTECG, all these other entities that want to receive the TRB 150 and experiment with it because they have use cases that are logistics based or some that are outside of the logistics realm. And the more entities we can get to buy into and bite off on the functionality and the necessity of unmanned logistics systems there, the better and more rapidly we'll be able to get, the golden goose, the golden egg, if you will, the thing that everyone wants that does all the things you need it to do that the TRB 150 doesn't do right now, but we're using the lessons learned from it to build into our subsequent increments.
Yeah, and we talked the past few days too about kind of how do you get through from prototyping to rapid acquisition and procurement. In some cases, we actually did push the TrueAs pretty quickly just to get it fielded so we could start learning a little bit more about it. When you do rapid acquisition, you also need to accept that, okay, it may not be the exact perfect thing, but it's a thing. So then you can start learning about it, and then you can make more iterative turns on that. And that's certainly what we're seeing with the TrueAs then too. So even just getting folks to kind of open their eyes to realize, okay, so 10 nautical miles, like how is that going to help me? Okay, well, in compartmentalized terrain, whether you're talking about urban, whether you're talking about compartmentalized terrain in even where we train out in Bridgeport or mountainous terrain, or even being able to, in a literal environment, trying to push out to get something from a ship. When you're talking about a small UAV, you can land that. Now, it's not just as simple as doing that, but you can land that on almost any ship, different than landing a CH-53 Kilo on every ship then too. So, yeah, thanks. So now I'm intentionally kind of walking the dog with this then. So as we talk through more emerging technology and we get smarter systems, that does mean that we have much more digital apparatus within our systems then too. So in using TrueAs as an example, Nemesis, JLTV. So what that has really opened our eyes to understand though is, okay, well, wait a minute, what type of expertise do we have to really work on the digital side of that equipment? It's no longer just a diesel engine where we need technicians and mechanics just to open up that, I'll say, typical diesel engine. Now it's all of this digital side of the house then too. So, and in some of the systems, like we talk about the Gator, which is one of our radar systems. So it's such a new piece of gear. There's these secondary repairables and components, which I know most folks know what I mean when I say that. But right now it's so new that we have to take that secondary repairable and send it back, all the way back to the original manufacturer to get that rebuilt. Or do we? We're now starting to realize that, wait a minute, we have some of the expertise with some of the right tools and the automated test sets to be able to do some of that ourselves. And Zach, that's what I'd like you to talk about. So I always mix it up. I always micro mini or mini micro. It's micro miniature repair and our ability to do that at the tactical edge with the right kit. So from the, Zach, can you talk about some of the 2MR efforts and what we're seeing as successes?
Absolutely, sir. So micro miniature repair is exactly what it sounds like, right? We're messing around with resistors, semiconductors, capacitors on the circuit card that you see inside of these systems. Everybody's always focused on the big box. Well, we're taking that apart, opening it up, and seeing how this actually working on the inside. And like Colonel Angell said, we do send these things back to the manufacturer. Sometimes they're under warranty, but there's also long lead times on that. And well, as a maintenance officer, maintenance is a function of logistics. So we try to cut that into that long lead time in half, right? Our guys, 2800s ground electronics maintainers, they'll take the electronics, the whole system, and we'll reverse engineer it, right? All the way down to the card level to see common fault analysis, exactly what the trends are for how to repair that quickly. And where that really changes things is me being at 2nd Maintenance Battalion. My MOS is, I don't know if it's strategic, but I mean, we pretty much go to everywhere in the MAGTAF where we touch division, MLG, the ACE, any of it, and that MOS goes with it. And well, we talk to each other. So the guys that are not only at 2nd Maintenance Battalion, but 10th Marine Regiment, where the Gator is employed, they have the exact same capabilities that we have. We just get to focus on it way more. But that network's there for us to share that information with them. So when those guys do go forward, they're able to effect repair, vice shipping that back to the rear, having to get that code F, exchange, do a sec rep. They can effect it right there. Yeah, I guess we're the geek squad of the Marine Corps, if you will. But also with that, the cost savings that goes with it is enormous. When you're talking about some of these systems, a Gator's $40 million for just that end item. And then you're talking a card inside of that Gator could be somewhere upwards between $20,000 to $40,000. And what am I doing? Well, not me, but the Marines, they're spending a nickel to replace a capacitor on this thing and that card's fixed. So you want to talk about saving some money? Last year, just at, I'll take it back, not even the year. Last quarter alone, just at Electronics Maintenance Company at Maintenance Battalion, for our quarterly cost savings was over $350,000. Quarter before that was over $400,000. That's just one unit, having that cost savings all the way across just 2 MEF. And then 1 MEF, 3 MEF, they have the exact same thing going on as us. We're just a little bit better than them.
And the more that we explore with that, the more we're going to be saving with that too. That's what's like. There are some folks that are just now starting to realize that that capability exists within our Marines. And some of that relates to some of the kit that we need to give them as well. So Brian, thanks for your patience. I intentionally want to kind of talk through each of those as individual capabilities, but now it's the question, okay, so how do you pull that all together? And whether it's organic within our CLBs, within the CLR, or it's attachments, because as General Donovan, our strength of the Marine Corps is task organizing. Okay, we know we need to go someplace. All right, what are you going to be doing? How long are you going to be there? Then we'll put together the right team to do that. And it's all built around that core cell, the base unit of the CLB. But so can you talk us through some of the stuff there, or even some of the other innovations? Like I'll certainly point to what the CLR2 has been doing with boats then too. So thanks, Brian.
Thank you, sir. So the way Colonel Garreau, my commanding officer, talks about our regiment is we are a Marine Corps unit that does logistics. So with that, we see a lot of opportunity. The main goal and main purpose of our regiment will always remain to provide direct support to 2nd Marine Division. So all of our experimentation has to be enabling that combat service support role. Additionally, we will not take on anything that is not endorsed or at least being tracked by McWill S&T along with LCID. Having just come from CD&I, we get all these great innovative emails from all the MEFs, Mar4Res, where they have found the newest whammy kablammy and it's going to do wonderful things and win the next war and whatnot, but it's not informed by the gap list. And if it's not informed by the gap list, it's not a capability that we're going to develop. It's never going to get into the POM, and it's never going to go into the FITUP, and it's never going to go over to SysCom, and we're never going to field it. So you can fight the system, or you can use the system to actually get things pushed through. With that, we've had a lot of great success because the Marines and sailors of CLR2 are willing to go beyond just our standard METs and medals. They want to do more. One of the first things we did was we listened to what General Worth, our MEF commander, and General Hennigan, our MLGCG, were concerned about. They want to understand, are we able, within 2 MEF, to provide enough combat service support to deploy a MEB? So there's all these great nerds up at CD&I in Operations Analysis Directorate that do studies. So for all the Marines in the room, they do a study review board every year, and you can request free of charge to have them do a study. So you don't have to use the word feel, you can use the word facts. They will do a study for you. So we started a study in May on the ability of 2 MEF to provide combat service support to a forward deployed MEB. And that study will end at the end of this month. And we'll have analytics that will show where the gaps now exist as we've redesigned 2nd MLG due to our force design efforts. Where are those gaps? That then creates the gap list and the whole cycle continues again. Looking more at what you were saying, sir, though, with some of the tech, We are actually standing up within our distribution support battalion a maritime distribution platoon within our littoral distribution company. All of the watercraft that we're using are coming from McWill. We're not going out and buying our own things. They additionally have an assessment plan that we've put together through the contractors up at MLG so that they can then be fed back to Headquarters Marine Corps to inform the campaign of learning. Because if we're just doing experimentation for the sake of quick wins, it's not going to actually make a larger difference and impact the service. Another success story we recently had was with the great support of Tyler and his team, we were able last year during Bold Quest to hook up an expeditionary medical refrigeration unit and move live blood during Bold Quest underneath the TRV. They gave us a list of about 35 deliverables. How do we get after this? How do we understand the battery life? Is it user-friendly to a Lance Corporal? Can the corpsman actually offload it? What are the requirements there? And we were able to do that and then return the system back to McWill. Additionally, looking at planning tools, hopefully all of you are familiar with the term VITAL, the Visual Integrated Tactical Logistics Battle Management Aid. It's a log planning tool. We for too long as logisticians have been relying on spreadsheets. Everyone has their own little spreadsheet that goes to their unit that isn't actually informed by doctrine or the correct publications. And when that individual leaves the unit, you have to start all over. Well, INL has done a phenomenal job of developing a product that is actually going to get fielded in the next FY. And on Monday, we were contacted by LPI, the lead, and they're actually going to give that to us in CLR2 to start testing during our upcoming exercises. Additionally to Vital, we have had the privilege of partnering with another company called Rune, who's actually been here, and we've been using their Trios capability, which is actually a log AI informed tool. What I like about this is multiple things. One, it's AI informed now. Vital is planning on getting after the AI aspect in the future, and Vital is going to be a great, again, capability, but Rune Time Now is already using AI to inform this planning tool. They already partnered with the Army. They've come out and observed us at LSTX in February. We were at McLog. And now they're going to actually go out at the end of this month and observe CLB-8 during their ITX. Their feedback to our Marines and then their responses has actually shaped the development of this product. We took a mass casualty during LSTX. They didn't at the time have a means of tracking heroes and the repatriation of remains. They've updated that. They're looking at how do we track water? How do we track different points? How do we plan out maritime maneuver? Originally, they were just looking at, ground and air, but now they're adding in, what if we have the autonomous low-profile vessel, the Narcos sub that we have that's actually down in a lot in one of our motor pools? How do we employ that? So there's a lot of great opportunity. The key, I think, sir, to your point is staying nested within Headquarters Marine Corps' campaign of learning. You can complain all day that we're taking too long, that the fit-up is such a painful process, POM funding will never come, or you can get over it and you can actually work with the great Marines in Headquarters Marine Corps, inform them, and give them feedback in a manner that will actually get the product to the fleet sooner.
Yeah, awesome. So a common knot right now, often you'll hear him talk about, hey, we're going to war with prototypes. And in some cases, that's the leading edge. And then how do we get that forward, recognizing that we may not have all the .mlpf. And I know folks know what I mean with that long acronym. But the reality right now is we have folks that are experimenting. I would challenge that to say, okay, you're not experimenting, you're learning about what you could do now with stuff that exists. And not every unit will have everything, but it's just learning with options then too. We're about to open it up for some questions, but what I would really like for folks just to be thinking about, because what a lot of this shows is it's network, teamwork, and tech to deliver solutions and build trust. So it's the network of being networked with your folks to the left and right, as well as with industry, as well as with some of your partners up at Headquarters Marine Corps. as well as, for what it's worth, even with the Army. So a lot of stuff we do, we've been sharing with the Army Contested Logistics CFT, as well as the Army Capability Developers, which they call CDID. We're talking with the Air Force, we're talking with the Navy, in some cases even with the Coast Guard. There's the teamwork. It's the team that you have inherent. Like literally, the reason why I started off by saying 4 folks on the stage right now are from 2nd MLG is every single day they are all talking to each other. Okay, what can we do a little bit better? Now, if you can do this, then I can do this, and then pulling that together then too. And then ultimately, it does come down to how do you grab that emerging tech with the intent to deliver solutions. And every time you're delivering solutions, even if it isn't the biggest thing, every little solution builds that trust. And that's what we're seeing across the logistics units, particularly here at 2nd MLG, but then teamed up with Headquarters Marine Corps, and we're seeing this across all of the MEFs. So with that in mind, I'll open it now. So certainly I could throw some other questions there too, but I know some of our industry partners or even other collaborators have some questions too, and there's one down here. Thank you.
Tom Taylor, I'm with the NECC. One of the questions I keep struggling with, and I'm not getting solid answers, and I read a lot on, is additive manufacturing, AM. How many personnel do you need to make a solid team to start producing your products? I realize that's probably not a fair question because obviously it depends on the machinery you're dealing with, but there's some expeditionary packets that are out there now that I've seen on the internet. They talk a lot about capabilities, but they rarely talk about the functional teams that you need to make this stuff happen. And I think the Marines have done more in that direction than any of the other services. If you could answer that question, that would be a good question to answer for me, and I think for the audience too.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So I think it depends on what you're trying to get after. So if you want me to go out and reverse engineer every part I find and produce it in metal where I'm at, that team is much larger than the team that I have that's going to go out, find parts, and then find a local source of supply to produce it. So the Marine Corps has determined that there's 4 machinists per piece of equipment that we field. So I will say the answer is 4. But realistically, you need your logistics guys to look into it. It's an entire network that has to exist around it, that has to be integrated in how we plan and how we work. Realistically, when we get to the point where our digital inventory and our digital class 9 block, if you will, has enough critical NINs in there that we can go source it, I don't need somebody who's good at it. I need somebody who knows where to go to make it. Then I no longer need any experience in AM. I just need to be able to access the network. That's the ideal goal, is that I don't need a machinist. I can just call up mom and pop's print shop and they can make it for me and we'll move on. That's an ideal world.
I see one. Yeah, there we go.
Hey, good morning. This is a question for probably primarily Lieutenant Colonel Geisen, but for the whole panel. You mentioned, I think from a government Marine Corps perspective, the gaps list. From an industry side, what are your recommendations for industry to be able to have a better understanding of those gaps, so when they get into the solution proposal space in those conversations, they're doing the work that they need to do on the commercial side to shape solutions that are not 180 out from the Marine Corps' needs, but are more aligned even in the early developmental process?
So my time is a little dated. I've been a year out of DC. I did escape the NCR. The gap list, as you probably know, is on the high side, and it's not really shared publicly, and it's a very long list. My experience with that began in 2021 when Colonel Collins, now General Collins, 1st MLG Command General, had us meet with some of the individuals from McWill, LCE, S&T, and they went over, here's the tech that we're looking at. And while they were looking at the gap list, we were trying to communicate better how to prioritize it. So I can tell you that there's a great relationship between the LCID leadership and McWill S&T, where they review that gap list regularly. and they come to events like this, Modern Day Marine and other venues to meet with industry, and they have in their minds what they're looking for. So in the back of the room, you have Lieutenant Colonel Tim Smith and Ma'am Colonel Chestnut, you're here as well. They will go to these events knowing what they're looking for. Additionally, I did poorly during an interview about a year and a half ago and ended up becoming General Heckle's aide for a year. So when we would go to events like Sierra and Space, Modern Day Marine, the colonels and generals within CD&I are looking over the gap list and using that to inform his limited time and engagements as he goes and meets with partners at these events. So if you are advertising your capabilities and you're going to venues like this, Headquarters Marine Corps is looking for you, and that's, I think, the best opportunity to link up. But I would defer to Colonel Angell, sir, if you had a little more on that.
Yeah, the only thing else I would add is depending on what sector of industry you are with, it's really identifying which systems command office you should be aligned with. So a few that I'll list out right now. So for the cargo UAS, it's PMA 263. So it's from the Nav Air side of the house. That's what the A is. So PMA 263 is what we use for cargo UAS. So from the small boat side of the house, it's PMS 420. So within NAVC. So, and you notice that, okay, aviation is where we're going for cargo UAS. Autonomous and other smaller boats is with NAVC because they know boats a little bit better. So that's PMS 420. And then for most of the systems that are logistics related within SysCom, then we have, there's a program manager for combat service support. And then certainly there's our partners within the Army, which the Army has their sustainment CDID as well. So if all of that is unfamiliar to you, that's actually the group you really need to be focused on, because it's the capability developers that are reaching out to the systems commands to really prioritize what things we need to be grabbing onto. And in many cases, they're already working really closely with industry to see what's in the realm of possible as emerging tech. Thank you. I see a question. We'll go with the far side, and then we'll come to the middle. Thank you.
Gentlemen, talking about the unmanned logistics system aerial, one of the things coming out of 12th LLB is that, hey, the TRV, like you said, Captain, is not the answer, but it's getting us, discovery learning. And the big one was integration to the Marine Air Command and Control System so that we're not taking down manned aviation. What have you guys seen, Brian, in the testing side, in your experimentation? And then what are we thinking about the concept side to extend that integration out to the LCE, because we don't have air officers, we don't have JTACs, which is how infantry battalions, recon battalions link up to the wing.
Go ahead.
So there's digital interoperability going on at CDD. It's a capabilities requirement under AVERB, and it tackles that, right? The aerial integration for unmanned aerial platforms. Funny enough, CLR2 has been extremely helpful because prior to this upcoming fall, all of our aerial integration extra work with TrueAs has been done at WTI. So every WTI, for the past 4 WTIs, we've had the TRV-150 go out and do what's called a tactical demonstration, but it's really working with different systems that the Marine Corps is pursuing to get after the aerial integration process for unmanned aerial vehicles and systems. And so this upcoming fall, CLR2 is participating as the LCE for WTI, and they're going to take on a greater role in employing this and working with McWill, if I'm not mistaken, to further attack that problem and create reps and sets for that aerial integration for the unmanned systems. But I'll let you carry the rest there.
Thank you. Yeah, so 2nd DSB Leo is going out to support WTI. They are taking a UAS team with them. Colonel Garreau came back from Modern Day Marine and said, we need a UAS planning cell. So we have a UAS officer now, and we have a campaign of learning that we're executing within CLR2 with the support of 2nd MLG's Air Officer and G3, where we're now executing a monthly fly day. And that might sound like a small win, and it is. It's a small step, though, where we're normalizing with range control that logos are flying drones. And we executed our first one last month, and maybe for about 2 hours, a TRV flew in a circle in a field. Not a huge win, but now we're normalizing it. And it took an ammo can up, it dropped it, but now my goal is that come January, February, no one cares, because it happens every single month. We have our UAV operators, and we are executing this like HSTs, BOGs and POGs, other logistics functions. We are helping PMA 263 with the down select of Marvel next month, informing them on what we think that capability needs to look at. And we're not sending captains, majors, lieutenant colonels. We're sending senior enlisted and other Marines, NCOs that are actually going to be operating these things. So I completely agree with you, Leo. The TRV is not the long-term answer, but it is absolutely an opportunity for us to normalize logistics operating in the air domain. And I'm optimistic that this will open the aperture for us to continue to work with the aviators. It was incredibly helpful to have Colonel Hoeing, who hopefully will pin on any day now, come down and brief at the 2nd MLG Senior Leader Conference. Here's how aviators want logisticians in their domain. They want us to help them. They want to deconflict. They want us operating because they understand that we need to be executing multimodal, multi-domain logistics. And we're not going to be able to do that in an effective, safe manner without them at the table helping us plan and execute this scheme maneuver. Does that answer your question, Leo?
All right, we have time for one more. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, good morning. I think within the Marine Corps right now, there's not an area that's not being modernized or innovation, right? I think you talk about units. I believe you made the comment, sir, that there's a lot of silos within what's getting done and how it's getting done. I think the issue is the outreach, right? Because without that appropriate outreach, you're not going to get that embrace. And without the embrace, we all know good technologies, they die on the vine. So, what's the plan there maybe, or what's the Marine Corps doing from for more outreach maybe within, unit to unit and then industry, if there's an area where we can support that as well.
Go ahead.
I would say being at things like this, I've noticed that even in the last 8 months, there's been a significant uptick in 2MEF in general involvement in different conferences, different groups, different working groups, kind of help drive it from the ground. Because planning's great, but planning's useless if you don't have the people that are actually going to execute in the room.
So I'll add one more comment on that. We tend to idolize disruptors, innovative speakers, and they are absolutely necessary. But I think we forget the value in those that show up and do their job. We need the Marines that show up and train to the standard and do that. So yes, we need the outreach. We need these silos of excellence. We need that to spread. But I also want to recognize that we need the Marines that show up, go to the rifle range, do their job, and keep the mission moving forward. So I think there's the coalition of the willing with a lot of the efforts I'm talking about. A mentor of mine, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Gilley, talked to me about when you leave a command, try to leave it so that you come back in 6 years and they go, we don't know why we do this, but we do this thing. So we're each trying to leave our mark and to improve the Corps as we are at each command and each unit. I think these Marines to my right are doing a phenomenal job of that, and I'm grateful to be working with them. So I think that you're right. The personal relationships are critical, and we bring in the flock, if you will, when we need them. But we don't need everyone to be an innovator. We don't need that. There's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. So I think there's a balance, and I think we're getting close to it.
I would even add that, at a certain point, innovation is the norm. So meaning, which you always need to be thinking about innovation, but at a certain point you want to actually normalize what yesterday was innovation, and it's just a question of how do you get to that. And that's really what the intent of some of this was to try to get at, is to recognize what is already happening in the Fleet Marine Force, but then how do we grow that? And I'm going to really end it here, recognizing that there's some questions with really one piece, and it actually even relates back to what General Donovan had brought up then too. And one of the questions that even Camp over the past few days too is, okay, yeah, but how do you influence? So, and some of that, how do you affect change? Okay, well, sometimes it is actually working with the supported command and saying, yeah, but here's what I can bring to the table. And do you mind if we actually insert this into your exercise? And that could even just be everyday training in a training area, not even necessarily one of the big exercises like a PAC Sentry or an MWX. So, and with the real parting shot, so somebody at one point had asked me, so yeah, how would you rate a staff officer on a 1 to 5 scale? I thought that was a really strange question. But the discussion has led me to this, and it sums up what General Donovan had brought up then too. So if you consider yourself being a staff officer, really this is a person on any team then too. So a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is you're trying to get into the room where the discussion is occurring. Okay, so that'd be a 1. A 2 is you're in the room, but sitting on the outside. You're sitting at the kids' table. A 3 is you're at the table. Some folks would say, holy cow, that's only a 3? Like even just getting to the table, like that's success. Yeah, that's a 3. So you're doing pretty decent. A 4 is you're participating in the discussion. And a 5 is they are not starting the discussion until you're at the table. Most folks, when you talk about that, think that that is only the commander or the OPSO. Now, the reality is that can be every person at the table if they prove their worth. So that's the challenge for every single one of us, and that's not even just a staff officer. That's actually in every industry team that you're on then too. Prove your worth where they're not starting the meeting until you're at the table too. So, and that's the whole thing with logistics. Yes, there can be the woes, but I don't have everything. Yeah, for what it's worth, you'll never have everything. Because even if you did have everything you thought you were going to have, then you would come up with some other things that you think you need. That was probably a horribly put together sentence, but I think you know what I mean. The challenge then is, okay, how do you make yourself relevant and make your organization relevant to actually affect change? And that's what we're seeing with the folks that are to your left. They are affecting change and changing culture and introducing, whether it's in allowing folks to be the innovators or it's normalizing the innovation. So my hand is over to you guys. That just ruined my entire speech. Oh my God. So, but my hat is off to each one of you, and thanks for what you guys are doing. Thank you, sir.
It's interesting how a lot of these conversations, especially on the last day, begin to tie into each other. We heard yesterday from the general talking about the devil dog that the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps didn't like, but the capabilities of that devil dog. And I think that goes back to the statement that Lieutenant Colonel and then the Colonel emphasizes, like you don't always need everybody to be an innovator. You need a lot of people that are going to go out and execute, but you can't have an organization that doesn't have innovation either. So these two things are important to balance. And again, I just want to say thanks to our moderator. He thanked the group, so we'll thank our moderator for ensuring that this was a fruitful discussion. Thank you, sir. And we're going to go into an extended networking break. If you would come back at 10:45 for our last panel of the day, we'd appreciate that. So go on, have some fruitful conversations, and we'll see you in about 25 minutes.